goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding craves, where we sit down, often with a special guest, and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. And who are we? Well, I'm Simon, and look at this guy beside me. Very demure, very mindful. Together we are Cinemate Films, two Scottish-based wedding filmmakers who love nothing more than drinking coffee and talking shop with others in the wedding industry. This episode is sponsored by PickTime, but I'll get onto that later in the show. Thanks, PickTime. Greg, who are we talking to today?
We are talking to our friends Katy and Jim from the Caryls.
Hey,
hello guys, how you doing?
How have you been?
We've been grand, yeah.
Brilliant.
Been busy, as I'm sure you guys have too. How's it going down in Glasgow?
Yeah, it's great. Actually, today is the first day that I walked around the city going, it's noticeably cold today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've just come back from 2 weeks holiday, so I've not been
Very
busy.
nice.
But
Where have you been?
South France. So I've noticed the temperature change as well.
Yes, lovely.
But yeah, that was nice to get a wee break.
Yes, indeed. I should say, do you have yourselves a drink? Just
We
so
do.
you
We do.
could, just so you
My
could
cup
slide in.
is about the same size as my head.
But your cup is very nice. But Jim has a perspective mug.
I do.
Yep.
With a wee
One of our merchandise.
He's such a swad.
Yeah.
That's right. So
Well,
McTaggish.
yeah.
that's right. So for all our listeners who can't remember, when we rebranded, we came up with this little haggis guy. Is he in the back? Yeah, the haggis guy. He is actually a haggis guy, and we needed a name for him, and Jim had the best name. So
Yeah.
yes.
So thank you.
You won. You
Yeah.
won.
Yeah, the Taggish, Gaelic for haggis.
Yes, indeed. Which I didn't know about.
I know.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So thank you for educating me. I feel like I'm always getting educated by you guys whenever I'm around you or talking to you, which is quite nice. I was going to say something. Never mind. What have you guys been up to recently? Because obviously, well, you moved a few years ago out of the city.
Yeah,
we
last
moved
summer.
last summer.
Yeah, June.
Oh,
June.
So yeah,
only June. Okay.
It feels longer, but we've just done the full set of seasons.
Right.
So we've seen all the different colours as they emerge, and it's been fantastic.
yeah, we've really kind of loved getting out of the city. I think both of us are big nature lovers, really. I think it was one of the things that really kind of brought us together when we first got together. And I think we kind of ended up in Glasgow, which we really enjoyed whilst we were there. But our plan was never really to kind of be in the city. And so we'd been
Although we spent 10 years. Well, I spent 10 years there.
I spent like 15 years.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Glasgow is great. It's such a friendly city, really vibrant. But our kind of plan was always to get out of town, which proved to be quite a lengthy procedure.
Yeah.
But also 100% do not recommend moving in the middle of wedding season.
Yeah.
So that was a lot.
That was brutal.
Yeah, that was really
it was about
brutal.
6. I decided to move ourselves. So I just hired a van, and it ended up being like 6 trips from Glasgow to Dunkeld.
Yeah.
Folks hire a removal company, especially if you live on the top floor of a tenement flat
In Glasgow,
In
yeah.
Glasgow, trying to get a bed downstairs.
We're trying to get a mattress down the stairs, and trying to take a dead fat man down 5 floors of stairs. It's just
But yeah, very much enjoying it now we're here. It's been awesome.
Nice.
Would you say so? Obviously, you basically said you weren't city people, although admitted that you had lived in the city for a good part of your life. So I don't know how that computes. But what made you move out? Like, was it just you needed different vibes, or was it like many photographers, their brand didn't suit their locale, so they move? Like, I know a few photographers who have moved from England to Sky, and they changed their whole life, and that's now their business. Was it similar with you guys? Or?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, when we never shot a wedding in Glasgow. I think you shot one.
I did one.
You
Glasgow
did a solo
elopement.
Glasgow wedding, but it wasn't really. That wasn't really the vibe we wanted for weddings, and we basically wanted to move closer to where we do our work, but we don't specialize in one part of Scotland. We like shooting all over Scotland. So where do you base yourself?
I think it was partly, a kind of commuting thing. So
because it was brutal.
It was like 6 hours up and down to Skye, whatever. So we liked Perthshire as a place to live. I grew up in Devon, Jim grew up in the Lake District. So the kind of softer landscape of Perthshire really kind of feels like home to us. We love Glencoe, we love Skye, but they're more, I guess, sort of harsh, I feel like, as a landscape. They're dramatic and epic, but it never feels like home to us.
Yeah. So we're sort of surrounded by rolling farmland. And
it's kind of,
and I've got family history here too. My grandmother was born up near Piclochry.
And then also we'd be constantly kind of going through Dunkeld on our way up north, and it was always our kind of stop off point. And probably not many people know Dunkeld unless they live in Scotland, but it's really cute. A little, I don't know, was it a town, a village, big village, small town. And we'd always say, wouldn't it be lovely to live here? We'd love this to be our local. And so it just became a bit of a mission to kind of make that happen. So it's it kind of really cuts down our commute by like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, it's just enough that doing a we get to Skye in 4 hours or so, which just makes it an easy run.
And
then
places like the Cairngorms, you can kind of do there and back.
Cairngorms is like an hour. Torridon's like 3.5 hours. It just
makes it a lot easier. So
Torridon's only 3.5 hours.
I know, it's bizarre. It's just that extra little schlep to Skye just seems to suck up an extra hour, but you just boost up to Inverness and turn left and you're basically there. So it's it's a super easy run.
I would never have thought that, by the way. Never have thought that. But anyway, cool.
Yeah, last time we were talking this morning, last time we shot together was it Rassie that was the last time? Or has there been one since then?
September 22
years ago.
It was like 2 years ago this month.
That was an awesome wedding.
It was. I was going through some of the old clips because I wanted to post them on, was it TikTok? I think I posted them on TikTok again. Just because, it's one of those funny weddings because I think you definitely recommended us on that one. And the couple were super shy. Like they were lovely, but they kept on telling us they were very shy behind the camera. They were very nervous. They wanted things to be private. And I was absolutely respectful of that. But then there were some moments that they wanted to be kept away from us. Like, do you remember?
Yeah,
we went far away. No, it wasn't even that far away. We went a walk from the hotel to the graveyard, and they read their personal vows that they had written to themselves, and they had originally said that they didn't want that captured.
Yeah,
and I just remember feeling that was going to be a mistake for them, and so I kind of pushed quite hard.
We managed to get a mic on them, and then all four of us just slowly, sort of as they got engrossed in the moment, we all just slowly sort of got closer and closer. And they never really noticed, did they? I don't think they did.
It was such a kind of emotional moment as well. It was really. I remember their vows being really, really emotional.
And they were mass. They were like real high performers as well because they just before the wedding, they'd basically been hiking the Colorado Trail. And every night they said they've been watching America's Top Model. And so when we did like a photo shoot with them the day before up on Skye in the Trotternish, and they just kind of like, they were just straight out of the bag. They were
nailed it.
Absolutely nailed it. Didn't have to say a thing. They were just like doing all this. It was probably like maybe a little bit much, but it was really nice.
It was super fun. I think they were a really great mixture between being kind of super relaxed, but being really high achievers. Yeah. So you knew they just wanted to nail their photography and they completely did. So that was a really fun day and such a great group of folk as well. I felt like the energy in the room was awesome that day.
But we were actually talking the other day when we were just ahead of this podcast about, because we worked with you guys. In fact, you were the first videogrophers that we worked with in 2018.
With Adam and Laura.
Adam and Laura.
Oh, yeah.
But we were kind of commenting how when certain people that you work with, there's sort of almost like a balletic relationship as you're moving around the couple in some tight spaces. And we've done one in a really dark church together at was it Drumtochty? And there was almost no space to maneuver, because the bridal party was there, the groom party was there. It was a dark space, we couldn't get the light. And there was all four of us just kind of like doing this little dance, us being conscious that we didn't want to get in your film because we can clone you out easily, but but that was quite a feet. I was quite impressed.
Yeah. What was we love Drum Talk Day, but that church, the light falls in the wrong places. Yeah. You can be doing a ceremony and there's a lovely patch of light and you can't use it because the ceremony's going on. But we actually shot one there recently and they didn't use the ceremony. They didn't use the church for the ceremony.
It was a humanist
they wanted photos in there. We went in and those patches of light were just perfect to use.
Right.
It was amazing.
It was ridiculous, actually, how good that light was coming in. But I don't know if you remember where the light falls. So during ceremony time, which is like between 12 and 2, obviously over here, the light was coming down and it would hit halfway up the aisle.
That's right.
And then maybe 5 feet behind the couple on the altar. And that makes it really... It can make it challenging for when you're wanting like a good continuous shot of the bride coming down the aisle, but then the light's changing and it's like really direct sun and then into complete shadow because it's a church and it's dark and cold. Yeah. And then you got a photographer under your feet because they want that shot because they spotted that there's going to be that moment where she passes through and you kind of hope that just as she goes through the light, she doesn't do something silly with her face because it's going to be like that one shot.
That's the shot.
And you can't pause it. You can't roll it back.
Before we get too far, why don't you, for listeners who might not be aware of you, why don't you tell us a bit more about who you both are and as a company, who you are as well?
So this is Jim. I'm Katy.
I'm Jim.
He's Jim. I'm Katy. We're a husband and wife wedding and elopement photography team based in Scotland.
Yeah.
Nice. And we've been doing it since, so we kind of built our business in 2017. Doing the usual trick of shooting friends' weddings and stuff, but we did our first elopement in February 2018 and never looked back. We decided that was our thing.
I think when we started out, we had been doing some kind of larger scale weddings, kind of more traditional venue weddings. And I think after we shot our first elopement, it just felt really right. The kind of simplicity of the day, the way the couple felt able to be very emotionally open, the kind of lack of performance anxiety, the lack of kind of rush and stress across the day. It just felt like it was really kind of good fit for us personally, and also all the things that we kind of loved as photographers. We do still shoot the odd kind of larger wedding throughout the year, particularly during the summer, because as you guys will know, kind of being in the Highlands with all the tour buses and the ticks and the midges and the horseflies is not the most fun. So actually we quite like shooting kind of in a nice wedding venue, July and August, where you've got the place to yourself and you're not being hounded by midges.
But I mean, of course, you pick up that first elopement and you fall in love with it, but already you're already booked up with the weddings you were shooting. So, for the rest of 2018, you're sort of doing venue weddings and things. And we have lovely couples. So we've always enjoyed having great couples. But then as you're able to start kind of niching down and focusing your marketing around elopements, you start then the next year to really just have this fun with the kind of weddings you want to shoot.
I think actually the other thing that just kind of works quite well, or kind of fortuitously in our favor, was at the start, or January 2020 was really when we kind of discussed niching down into elopements, and we'd got that kind of elopement portfolio by that point. And obviously everyone knows what happened in March 2020. So we'd already kind of positioned ourselves, towards photographing elopements. And then we had a lot, the minute that it became, allowable to travel and to get married, I think that was August 2020. There was a lot of couples who'd been, obviously been planning a larger wedding in 2020, and that wasn't going to be able to go ahead, and they didn't want to put their life plans on hold for another year. So we picked up, we were actually really busy the second half of 2020, just with couples wanting to
picking up
new
new couples, but also couples that we'd already booked for maybe larger weddings. were able to pivot, and they had confidence in our abilities to do elopements because we were already specializing in them. And for some of them, it actually just kind of gave them the permission they wanted to have the wedding that they actually wanted. And say, oh yeah, no, we have to do this now because otherwise we have to wait a year. But really, they'd always wanted an elopement. So
we
really worked for them.
We had a lot of people kind of saying that it was their kind of get out of jail free card on the wedding front, and families couldn't argue because hey, global pandemic. So worked out quite well for them as well.
Yeah. How did you guys survive COVID then? If you had more or less just started. I mean, not just started. That sounds ridiculous because you'd been doing it for a couple of years. But like, that's not a long time in business to build any sort of backing. So like, how did you get through COVID?
So when we first started photographing weddings, we were both in full-time jobs. Jim working for Glasgow University as a science writer and myself working as a producer director for the BBC. So we kind of ramped it up over 5 years in total probably. The first year we were shooting maybe 3 weddings, and then it kind of scaled up to whatever 15.
18, and then it was like well into the late 20s, and then into the late 30s.
Yeah, so I was still working for the BBC in 2020, and I think it was probably a year and a half where we were essentially doing 3 full-time jobs. So
because we had a full lineup of wedding bookings,
it was tough. So I'd be doing 9 till 6 at the BBC, answering all the photography emails in my lunch break, and then you'd be doing the same full 8-hour day at the university, and then coming home and editing in the evenings, and then shooting.
So a lot of screen time.
It was a lot.
I can imagine.
Close one laptop, open another laptop, carry on. Another 8 hours.
Oh man, just dreaming of that country life in the future.
Yes,
that kind of
literally.
Thing,
having the license to basically do that and not be tied to a location, not be tied to an office, and to take your life where you want it to be.
Was that the main draw of? Like, because you have at this point 2 real jobs. They're real and they're like jobs. And then you move into a category that some people just think is a hobby.
Yeah.
Not us, not anyone who's actually in the industry, but for those uncles and aunties out there, it's like, oh, you do weddings. Oh, that's so nice. What do you do during the week? Was that the draw just to get out?
Yeah, I mean, I had to say, I think I've definitely felt a bit of that from, my dad, probably less my mum, but definitely he didn't want me to quit television because, that sounded
give up a full-time job at the BBC to go and be a freelance wedding photographer.
That sounded like a nice, sensible job. And actually, a lot of TV people, it is amazing how much they look down on wedding photographers.
Oh,
And how many TV people don't have a wedding photographer literally at their own wedding? Like people who are working in the visual industry do not have wedding photographers, which I find quite astounding. And so when we kind of flipped into wedding photography, if TV people asked me what I was up to now, I'd say photography. And when they said, oh, interesting, what sort of photography? I'd always say, oh, it's a mixture of landscape, portraiture, and still life and reportage or whatever, which essentially is what wedding photography is, isn't it?
Sure, yeah.
But if the minute you say wedding photography, you definitely feel a judgment there for sure.
But I think, I think if we were going to pivot to do this other thing, it had to work as a business. We couldn't just scrape by like students, £500 a wedding type thing. It had to pay, and I was going to have to pay for 2 people. So, we're going to have to be pretty serious about how much we basically doing the math, and working out how much we needed to shoot and what things were going to cost.
Actually, ironically, I make more now in wedding photography than I did in television. So that
nice.
Would surprise some
Take
people.
that, TV people.
And it's all in your control.
There's also no work in TV at the moment.
Yeah, so, that's the other thing. Like, over the last kind of
the bottom's fallen out of the industry.
So many TV people are now, like award-winning directors, are now working in coffee shops and things just because the TV industry there seems to be no work apparently at the minute. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's been quite shocking.
Why would that be the case? Because there's like so many platforms like Netflix and obviously the BBC and all these like established just platforms. Just they always seem to be making content all the time. There's new shows all the time.
Yeah, I think it's from what people are saying. There was a hiatus on making stuff over the pandemic, and then coming out of the pandemic, a lot of outlets really over-commissioned, and essentially they just spent all their money. And also, I think things like Amazon, when they started out commissioning, they were really throwing tons of money at it because they wanted to kind of make a splash and compete with Netflix. And then they realized that just wasn't sustainable. So there just isn't the same amount of money there. Things aren't being commissioned, or commissioners are being very hesitant about commissioning. So they just don't want to commit. So they just sit on the fence for ages and ages and ages. And you've got these whole productions sort of sat there thinking, is this happening? Is this not happening? Do we need to employ a team? Do we not need to employ a team?
It doesn't help you with a freelancer when you've got this 9-month hiatus of work. What do you do? So
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But now obviously
the way that the work came in as well in freelance is you get about 4 weeks notice for 14 weeks work?
Yes. So an average, if you're making an hour-long documentary, it's usually a 14-week production schedule. And as you guys will know, if people are getting married, usually they're contacting you like a year in advance. Even for elopements, we get contacted, a year, 6 months in advance. But with television, very often it's like a month, 6 weeks in advance. And, they're calling up saying, can you start next month on a 14-week contract? And just the kind of uncertainty, you're sat there waiting for the call thinking, am I going to be able to pay the bills? Which was, I guess I never especially planned to completely leave television, but it was just almost a practical thing really that, we've got all these couples lining up to book us for next year. And we're not going to sort of sit there, say, turn them away just in case I get a call from a TV production company a month in advance. So it's, I think television is a very uncertain way of life. And I think also when we were looking to kind of move out of town, it was actually a very sort of practical thing that you think, what could we do? What transferable skills have we got that would allow us to live a life out of town where you're not expected to be, bums on seats in an office 9 to 5 in the city.
I still feel like in wedding videography or filmmaking, there is still that, you're waiting for couples to book you. Because we're always but
you're in control of your own destiny there.
Yes, that's very true. But I still have that feeling of like there's an uncertainty, especially being like one of the latter things that people want to consider at wedding. Yeah. So for us, there's always like that uncertainty there. And I don't like it. Although it's becoming less now. That was more of a problem like a few years ago. Yeah. Now it's people are finding us a bit more easily and. Yeah.
I mean, I think
I was going to say, I found that really interesting. I remember you mentioned that on, some of your previous episodes. So I'd always assumed that people would kind of, if people want beautiful images from their day, both, stills and video, that would be one of the first things they book. But you find that you're kind of, how far out are couples typically booking you? Do you find?
It really varies. Like there is some couples who'll book up to a couple of years in advance and they're like, I want that wedding film. I want you guys. Yeah. So it's one of the first things on the list. But then there's others who they maybe prioritize obviously venue or whatever and then go, right, we've got a photographer. So images are covered. Okay. Now we'll see what we can afford for video. Like there's some people who leave it in that order still.
Yeah.
And quite often those are the ones that maybe don't end up managing to get us, but they'll maybe go, we've seen what's available. We need to stretch that budget and make it work.
Yeah.
So it varies.
Which is, there's definitely a compliment on either side of that as well. Cause it's like, if a couple see your work and they want you, they book you like 2 years in advance. It feels like that was a done deal, and they loved you so much they needed to have you, so they had to book. But it's almost the same on the other side as well. Like, anyway, doesn't matter.
I think because one of the things that when we first started out, and we were thinking, well, what's the source? What's the source of our inquiries? We're thinking, do we have to get in with planners? Is that the route? But then, when you do that, you kind of lose a degree of kind of control over who you're working with and where you're working and what the plan is.
Yeah.
And so when we kind of moved towards elopements, we very much positioned ourselves as the first point of contact, by putting a huge amount of knowledge resource out online, and made sure that that's what people find. And it's not like that knowledge resource is saying, book us. We're saying, this is how you do it. You want to elope, this is how you do it. And that, obviously, they then discover they're actually on a photographer's page. And, hopefully they like our photography. But that as a route is positioning yourself as the first person. And then taking, I think we were pretty early on in our business, taking a bit more control over helping people with planning, just to kind of exercise a bit of control over what makes for a really good day. Often people, they look at the photos and they kind of, they do want that. And we're like, well, this is what it's going to take to achieve that. But, as much as you want to entertain all the different whims that people come to you with, maybe hiking that mountain and then jumping on a boat and then going to this other island and then, and it doesn't always work. And they want to do it at, crazy times a year where there's just going to be tons of tourists and everything. and kind of taking that planning role is something that we were quite keen to.
I think we definitely noticed there was quite a difference, in, I guess, mindset between couples who are planning, 100-person castle wedding. So they've got their date, they've got their venue. You may be the fifth vendor on their list. The hair and makeup may be more important. The food may well be more important. And we definitely felt that they were probably contacting 10 other photographers and probably just comparing you on price. Whereas with elopements, typically we find the photography is the most important thing to them. The kind of planning assistance and help and our knowledge of Scotland. We have quite a lot of people coming from Canada and the US. A lot of them haven't been to Scotland before. So it's that sense of, your day is going to be safe in our hands. We've done this a lot before. We kind of know the recipe for success. We can give you this awesome day and hopefully give you beautiful photos as well. And I think if you're not paying for a venue and you're not paying for a 3-course meal for 100 guests, instantly you've got a lot more money, at your disposal, for photography and, whatever else you want to spend around your whole kind of experience. And I feel like we rarely get people kind of querying on price with elopements. It's very much they're invested in the adventure, they're invested in the experience, they're invested in creating really, just a really special memory, a trip around their day. And if we're going to be the only people there documenting it for them, then these images are kind of priceless. And also I think I loved what one groom said to us about, he wanted his friends and family to experience their elopement. He just didn't want them there on the day. And, and it was very much like, that's what the photos are for. They can come along for the ride, as it were. And they can experience the day that you experienced through the photos. And I think when we're documenting an elopement, that's very much the mentality that we have is, we want to produce some beautiful photos, obviously, that they can put on their wall and, love. But we also really want to capture how it felt, in a very sensory way. We want them to be able to look back through their gallery and really be transported back there and kind of relive it all again in quite a kind of visceral way. I think that's a big kind of influence on us, or impetus rather.
Yeah. I want to get back to something that you mentioned earlier about being the first one in front of your couples to book. If someone's new to business and wedding photography or even wedding videography, what advice would you give them to allow them to have that same kind of opportunity? Like, what would be the first steps in trying to get in front of their couples before any other supplier?
I would say so imagine the kind of weddings you want to be shooting, whether that's photo or video. Imagine the kind of couples that are going to be having that type of wedding, and then put yourself in their shoes. They've just got engaged. They're stoked to start planning their day. What are you going to do? You're probably going to Google stuff. Say you want a chic city wedding in Chicago or whatever. You're going to be Googling chic city wedding venues in Chicago. Or, if you want a cute barn wedding in, I don't know, the Scottish borders, that's going to be what you're Googling. So I just get a ton of blogs out there that target the type of venues or, the area that you want to focus on. If you haven't shot these places before, set up a styled shoot, invite some friends to come along and model for you, give them some lovely free photos in return. Kind of work with local suppliers that you want to team up with. It's very much a kind of, it's a community, isn't it? Kind of weddings. So look around for the people whose work you admire, the florists, the hair and makeup artists, reach out to them. And just put out a ton of content that's targeted to where you want to be shooting and the type of couples that you want to be working with.
Yeah, because if you think about, do you want to SEO yourself around wedding photographer or Scotland wedding photographer or, because there's a lot of competition there, but it's like, if there are places that you like to shoot, then you could push for that. And then you're filtering those couples that are after the places that you're interested in. So really push that. And it's just like, the Elope in Scotland, was what we pushed, and we're not selling ourselves as Scotland elopement photographer, although we rank quite well for that search now. But the aim was to get people to understand how to do this thing, because the other barrier is the complexity or unknown. People go to venues because they tell them how you get married.
Yeah.
So they look for the venue, and the venue sets out what the process is. But there were a few guys around for elopements, a lot of North American ones. There was a couple in Scotland, but we really pushed that. And again, it wasn't about being salesy. It's a community effort, because without that, couples don't know that it's possible. They don't know how to do it. And we've been doing kind of workshops and stuff recently, mainly focused, ironically, in France, where there isn't really an elopement industry. And the community hasn't really built it, and the photographers don't work in that community type way to build that knowledge base so that people understand it. Ironically, it's North Americans who have built a knowledge base about eloping in France. And it's Americans who are then shooting those weddings, not the French photographers. So we're like, you are missing a trick.
So if we spoke at a sort of conference, cocktail conference in Toulouse in February. And we were kind of talking about elopements and our path, I guess, to becoming elopement photographers, because obviously you think about France, awesome country, really beautiful,
so many places,
incredible variety of landscape, could easily rival Scotland for mountain epicness and just general romance. And so I just started kind of digging into it a bit, and actually France is the most visited country in the world, and Paris is the most visited city in the world. So you're already thinking, okay, a ton of people want to come to France. By the law of averages, some of these guys are going to be of kind of marriageable age. It feels like there's huge potential for an elopement market in France. And then, you Google France elopement, how to elope in France, and it's all American photography. All the blogs that come up are American photographers. So we just felt like, come on, French photographers, you need to kind of reclaim your territory.
And I think what they get confused about, and there is an element of this in Scotland, because there is still quite a strong traditional approach to weddings. In fact, we don't actually get that many kind of Scottish couples, because they're generally doing more traditional things. But I think people in France think, unless it's a legal wedding, like unless you're getting married on the day, that it's not really a thing. Whereas obviously North Americans are used to doing the courthouse thing in the States and then doing symbolic ceremony. And they have no problems with that, because they realize that the value, the intentionality of the day is on the wedding day that they assign, not signing a courthouse document. Because of course, as a foreign person, you can't get married legally in France. So it has to be symbolic, unlike Scotland. But even so, even half of our North American couples still do the symbolic thing in Scotland, even though it's relatively simple to do the legal thing.
I'd say in general, probably about half of our elopement couples have done the legal bit back home. Even like English couples quite often do the legal bit at home, and then just have a symbolic ceremony, and we never notice the difference. I mean, I'm sure you guys are the same, that in terms of the emotion, the excitement, the kind of poignancy of a ceremony, when we come to edit it, we literally can't tell which was the legal one and which was the symbolic one. Because
the only difference is that paperwork. Like when they don't go and sign the paper, you're like, oh they're finished.
That's right. And then you have to leg it up the aisle because you're not in the right position. You're like, no.
And it's a great, if you're an eloping couple and you've got parents who are being a little bit truculent about you going away to do that, it's a great way to appease them, because you invite them along to a document signing at the courthouse. They think they've been to your wedding, and then they get to come and do what they really want as their wedding day, which is, to elope. So it works.
But it is funny, because sometimes, quite often I forget that Scotland's unique in that way, that we can legally marry anywhere in this country.
Quite easy compared to other countries.
Whereas even just down in England, totally different. Totally different.
Yeah, and Wales.
And Wales, yes, sorry. Sorry. Ireland, don't know. What?
I think you can elope in Northern Ireland, can't you?
Northern Ireland.
That's quite a thing, And Iceland is the other place that you can do it, isn't it?
Well, Europe's got a mishmash of different allowances.
Yeah. So going back to the difficulties with France then, because we've had a few guests, and now I'm thinking about it, I'm maybe confusing them with Italy. Dan, sorry, he moved to Italy, didn't he? Yeah. But who was it who was talking about the culture there and France, and they were talking about how difficult it can be to work alongside other people because they don't have the same collaboration appreciation. It's very much competition over there.
I think it's Eric. I think it's Eric Renee way back in the day. He talked about how the community in Scotland is all about, or in the UK, it's all about sharing knowledge and lifting everybody up. Whereas in France, this was a few years ago. I'm not sure if it's changed, but maybe not. It wasn't that sort of community aspect. It was more every man for themselves sort of thing.
That's what that's kind of what we're seeing. I mean, we've done a few things with French context now, and we're doing another one later this year. I mean, we're very much, community over competition, and Scotland's a village of elopement photographers, particularly. But there isn't that sense of it, and also the kind of the positioning of photography in places like France, what they can earn as well is not high, which is why they really need to be tapping into things like elopements, where actually elopement can be a high price service compared to a big traditional wedding with all the other costs associated with it. So
I find it quite interesting when we chat with elopement couples. I always ask them what's the kind of impetus behind their decision to elope. And we find it's probably about 5 things that come up kind of again and again and again. And it would be, they love travel and adventure and experiences, and they value experiences over things. That one or both of them would describe themselves as introverted. So the idea of, them being the center of attention for a day, having to do the whole walk down the aisle thing just fills them with absolute dread, and they don't want to be dreading their wedding day. So, an elopement just feels really right for them. Sort of complicated family situations. So if their parents are separated and on great terms, and the idea of having, both sets of parents in the room at the same time would just be stressful for everybody. Or kind of family imbalance. So if one of them is an only child and one of them is one of 7 siblings, all of whom have got, wives and 10 kids or whatever. The fact that there's just going to be a huge kind of mismatch between sort of guest numbers on either side that just feels a bit wrong. And I just think people kind of loving the idea of having the adventure of a lifetime and kind of with a wedding thrown in. So I think also people choose to elope in Scotland either because of some slightly tenuous family connections. So their great uncle, once removed, lived in Scotland.
How dare you say tenuous? This is their bloodline.
This
is a homecoming.
Scots.
Either sort of some sort of family connection there, or because one or both of them came to Scotland previously and loved it, and or maybe they got engaged here and it just feels right to come back to get married, or one of them had a really transformative trip here and is really excited to kind of introduce their partner to Scotland so they can have that kind of fun as well, or they just had always kind of yearned, that something in their soul just yearned for Scotland, and they love the idea of coming here for an adventure and to get married along the way.
Yeah, very cool. Well, what's your view on the difference between shooting a big wedding versus shooting an elopement? How do you approach them differently? Obviously, there is a difference perhaps in the relationship between you and the couple, because perhaps you're like the only one there. Tell me about that.
God, yeah. Obviously, on a really basic level, it's kind of the same because you're rocking up with a camera and you're taking some photos. But I think we've definitely felt that what's expected of you as a photographer and the role that you play within the day is quite different. So with elopements, we feel that we're taking a much bigger planning role. In terms of locations, timeline, just the whole shape of the day.
Often where they're staying and...
We'd recommend accommodation, celebrants, florists, hair maker. It's like, here's an awesome plan for your day. Do you want to take it, kind of thing? And couples are usually very happy to be saved, weeks of Googling, be like, this sounds awesome, great, let's go. But I think we feel a huge responsibility, so couples are really trusting us with their day, which is awesome. But we really feel the responsibility of that, because obviously your wedding day is really important. It's a really special day for the couple. And we really, really want them to have an awesome time. It really matters to us. So I guess we feel that pressure a little bit, but also, you are kind of bringing the fun, you're bringing the vibe for a couple's day. And so we definitely feel that it's really important that we, feel a strong connection, particularly with our elopement couples, because you need to feel like you've been best friends for years. And, you're always aware if, the couple are getting ready and they're getting their clothes on and they don't have their mum or their best mate from school or their sister being like, oh, wow, you look so amazing. You kind of need to give them that positive affirmation and just shower them with all the love, just to make them feel special, really. And then I think with larger weddings, obviously there's a lot going on. We find, big weddings, they have their own energy. What will happen. And very often you don't have very much, if any, control over that. You can make some slight suggestions or some slight kind of modifications about, I don't know, where the couple are getting ready. If they're putting their suit on, how about going and doing it by the window rather than in that dark corner? But basically what's going to happen is going to happen. And you're just there to document it as beautifully as you can. And I think, what else would I say? I think it's
I mean, we've been quite fortunate that even when we've shot bigger weddings, that people have found us through. They recognise our kind of elopement credentials and the visuals that and they want that. You know, so we've never really had to just do the 20-minute photo shoot because they want to get back to their dinner. They're actually quite generous with their time on the day. Carving out time after the ceremony and certainly at sunset to get the kind of visuals that they booked us for.
And actually, interestingly, so just for example, we did quite a big wedding down in Cambridge at Queen's College, and the couple had met at Cambridge University, and it was on a really hot day in July, which would have been a nightmare if we'd been shooting an elopement. But actually, harsh light in the city is really fun. And we probably spent about an hour with them just in the evening after dinner. We just had a little kind of walk around the back streets, and they really enjoyed it because they had all these stories about funny things that had happened in this street and this venue and this kind of thing. So it was a trip down memory lane for them, really. And the next day they texted us and just said thank you, and they'd really enjoyed having us around and things. But they said actually that was their favorite bit of the whole day, and I think it was because it was just them having a little bit of time out from their
nostalgia. And it was just a beautiful time of the day, and the heat was just kind of turning off, and it was quiet, and everyone was it was just lovely.
Was that Fran and Zach?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Just because I quickly Googled to see what it was. Well, I'll put this blog of yours in the show notes if anyone wants to check it out.
Yeah, that was good fun, and we actually shot because that came to us word of mouth because we shot Zach's older brother's kind of wee wedding in Perthshire.
It was about 16, 18 people probably. So it was a kind of cross between a wedding and an elopement.
And we because there's a little niche of the small kind of intimate wedding where it's like 12 to 16 people that we love as well. Because you can quite often kind of just get them all off onto a Highland lodge. They can practically do the ceremony on the doorstep. You're well away from the tourist tracks. On a remote estate, and it's
always fun if it's quite often they'll have it
part of the party.
The weekend. So we've done a few where it's been in a very remote spot. They've had a spare room in their accommodation, and so we've just kind of gone up for the weekend, hung out with all their guests. You really get to know everyone, which is really nice. So when the wedding day dawns, you all feel like friends, and it's just a very relaxed time, and they get to spend time with all their favorite people over the course of several days, which we feel is a really fun kind of format.
It's nice. And then they get both their elopement vibes and the kind of slightly bigger wedding vibes all wrapped into one. It's a nice little formula.
But even that Isle of Rassay one that we talked about, it was definitely a big wedding. They had the big sort of stretch tent and everything, but it had the feel of an elopement as well, because they valued... They valued the landscape. They took you guys out for the pre-wedding shoot as well. So, although it's a big wedding, it still has a different feel to it.
Yeah,
because we did have quite a lot of time with them across the day, and obviously the rest of all the guests kind of came out for the wedding itself, and they were there for the big hootenanny in the evening, which was
loads of fun,
really good fun. But for the rest of the day, we actually had quite a lot of time with them, keeping it very sort of minimal and intentional.
I think that's the other nice thing about having a kind of multi-day wedding, which was what Marissa and Dylan did. So I think their guests arrived on either the Thursday, was it? And, stayed until the Monday. So I think if they know they've got plenty of time with their guests, they're not so worried about taking some time out to go for photos on the day itself, because, they know they're going to get to see
It's pretty rare that we
guests.
shoot the whole thing in one day type thing now. Like the Cambridge wedding was very much everything happened on that day. But most times the guests are there well before and well after, which frees us up to take the couple away for a bit longer. I mean, even that Drumtochty one that we did ages ago, we had a spate where we would kind of put ourselves out there as this, here's these big landscapes. We can put you into these landscapes in a beautiful way at a beautiful time of day. And that's what people wanted. And then they go, oh, we love all of this, but we're going to get married in this mansion with these lawns all the way around for acres and acres.
Really flat.
And we're like, are we supposed to like Photoshop a mountain into that? I mean, what are you seeing in our work that's going to that relate to this. But with the Druntocti one, Megan had been quite adamant about
all her Pinterest boards were like
mountains, Glencoe and mountains and stuff. We're like, we've got to find a mountainside and do this. Yeah. And the coordinator at the time was like not wanting us to take them off campus, so we all colluded to kidnap them basically and steal them away to a hillside, and we got extraordinary,
we got amazing lights,
light. And it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
It was,
and we got them back on time. We got
them back bang on time.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. I do remember.
We actually now the venue actually actively are open to carving time out to do that now. So. I think we made a good change there.
No, I think we set a trend there because we're like, this is an obvious place to go, which people hadn't been going, and we thought that just worked really well.
Yeah. Although to be fair, Jim, AI has come a long way. So if you want to just pop a mountain in the background, you could do that now. You can do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some chat in the community about using that not to add stuff where it wasn't there, but to slightly obfuscate the landscape so that people can't figure out where it is, and then copy your day. We haven't gone quite that far, but we heard from like surf photographers, who were like trying to protect their bays and beaches and stuff. They will quite often just flip the picture
and add some random trees or something.
Add maybe a random kind of like tump of rock in the distance, something, just to throw people off so they can't figure out where that beach is.
Fair enough. Yeah. I bet that's Nikki Ledbetter. She's a surfer, but she does that all the time. I'm watching you, Nikki.
Let's talk about what you offer your couples then, because how do you structure your package? What do you provide them? How do you cost it? Because you've mentioned you do a lot of helping with the elopements and how you guide them and where to go. So do you add that as a service, or do you just factor that in and know that you're going to have a lot of work?
We just factor it in. I think we're maybe slight outliers in terms of what you're told you should do as a wedding or elopement photographer. So we've never had our pricing on our website, which I know everyone says you should have a starts from pricing. We've never had that, and it's never hurt us. We have always offered just one simple full day package. So we don't do half days. We don't do by the hour. Because I think the way we see it is when we, commit to working with a couple, we're committing to them on their day for however long that takes. And I think we feel it's really kind of important and really precious to tell a full story of a couple's day. And I think sometimes elopement couples, because they haven't been to an elopement before, they might wonder how you're going to fill a day if there isn't all the cake cutting and the dancing.
Or indeed, traditional wedding photographers don't know how they're going to fill a day with a couple on a hillside.
That's true. They do get very panicky about it.
Whereas, actually it's really, really easy to fill a day. And so, we show couples examples of previous elopement days, and, what those couples got up to. And actually, on pretty much every single elopement we've ever shot, it's got to, 3:00 in the afternoon, and the couple have looked at each other saying, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe how quickly the time's going. Where's the day gone already?" We have one full day package that is based on both of us shooting their day.
All the planning
assistants, because we just feel like it helps us to know that we're setting the couple up for success again, really. If couples like our morning preparation photos, we know that some places work heck of a lot better than others in terms of achieving that look. So we can say, if you book one of these places, we know we can get you great shots. It's also going to be a lovely place to stay, and it's going to be well placed for the ceremony location that you want. So, this would be a good bet. Do you do like a plan B as well? Plan C? Yeah,
has there ever been a moment where you've thought, oh, there's actually a little bit more pressure doing it this way? And has there ever been that kind of moment?
Oh yeah. There's probably just kind of 3 times within last year. So one was last October on Sky when we were photographing in the middle of Storm Babette. So just absolutely crazy wind conditions. Yeah. And we had been supposed to do the ceremony on the Kerrang, and we were looking at the wind speed the night before. And we were like,
it was like 80 mile per hour gusts from the east. So straight onto the Kerrang, and there's nowhere to hide from the east wind and the Kerrang.
So basically, we just thought of the most protected spot we could think of, which was a little hazel glade in the middle of the Fairy Glen. So it's kind of in a dip. It's surrounded by trees, and actually, it was autumn, and it felt really magical. It was very hidden away. So although there were kind of other people around in the Fairy Glen, nobody could see us. So it felt like a little bubble. So that was really nice.
Yeah. So we have like Plan B weather plans, but also when we shoot a bit into the summer and you've got those big long days, obviously if it's a really moody day, you don't want to be shooting from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. So you have to skew a day later. But if it's a really sunny day, you do want to skew the day later because you don't want to be shooting a ceremony at 12 o'clock on a hillside. So we do a Plan B sunny day plan.
So we'd have two parallel plans. We'd have, this is what we'll do if it's a sunny day, where we probably start at lunchtime and then go right into the evening. Whereas this is what we do if it's like a rainy or overcast day, where we'd start earlier and it's probably not going to be a great sunset. So there's no point in waiting until 10:30 at night in June if it's just not going to be very visually interesting. So and couples are kind of teed up for that and they understand the benefit.
Yeah. And it's about being there for the full day is about maximum flexibility. So all the kind of other suppliers that we recommend, well, the celebrants, and if they're having videographer, are also flexible on the day. So that if we do need to push things for an hour because it's just, absolutely pissing down, then we can do that. We always just try and make sure that the ceremony is what and where they want from it, because there's no point standing in the rain and howling wind for the ceremony, because they can't really be present in any great sense because they're battling the elements. Whereas you can do that in a couple shoot afterwards. It's fine going out in the lashing rain and whatnot, because often you just get great light. But we'll always kind of compromise to make sure that the ceremony itself is
mindful,
quiet, protected, mindful. Demure.
That's your word of the day.
And then we've tried the shorter ones only once or twice, and the thing is that because if you see like an amazing sunset but your time's up, you're not going to stop shooting. You're not going to walk away from it. So you end up doing a full day anyway. So you may as well just own it and charge for the full day. And if couples want a half day, we're like, well, fine, but this is our price and it's our full day price. So
I get that some people structure their business that way and it works for them, but we're the same. Like, we just say, this is the price for an elopement. You can have 3 hours or 12 hours, however long it takes, we'll do. Because like, we're not going to book another job that day. We're only doing that one couple that day. So why not just call it all day coverage, and it's as much as you want.
And but it's not like it's always making us work later. There is the added benefit of, once you have enough footage to document the day, just tell a story and have it be an interesting and fun edit to watch, then you don't really need to stay. There's no need for you to stay for any more. You're sometimes maybe even overstaying your welcome. And so, with telling people, okay, you get us for the whole day, like, there is obviously the caveat that, once we've got everything, then we'll just leave you to party. And so there is the added benefit of it. Swings both ways.
And also there's the day length across the year in Scotland, because obviously, there's the sweet spot, which is why, where we do most of our work is in that kind of spring season and autumn season, because not only are there nice aspects to the landscape at those times of year, but also it's the sweet spot of being able to have a reasonable morning and a reasonable sunset. Then they can go for dinner and stuff. Whereas, December, we do shoot like December and January as well, but the days are really short, so you feel like there's a bit more urgency. But then the day's kind of done at 3:30 p.m. and you can shoot a bit more kind of like nighttime shots, even though it's like mid-afternoon. And then you're done. So it's actually a shorter day.
Although we always feel like the winter couples aren't shortchanged, because typically the light is always more interesting across the day.
The quality of light across the day is
you
much
get
better.
less light, but better quality light. Whereas obviously June, it's getting darker.
You can have hours and hours of awful light. and there have been times in June where it's been a real scorcher, and we've, got the couple up for sunrise, then gone for brunch with them, then let them go back to their day to just chill out, hide from the sun, whatever, and then pick up again with them at dinner time, and then shoot into the evening, which has worked, for those occasions.
Yeah. Cool. Good. I know there's always photographers who want to ask this, especially because you don't have your prices on your website, but how do you charge for the full, is there a difference in the way that you charge for an elopement versus what you charge for a wedding? And if so, what would be those prices? Just so people have that knowledge.
Yeah, we charge the same. Yeah.
Cool.
We have experimented with kind of peak season pricing, just because certain months we always get much more inquiries than others. So October, you could book out 5 times over. May. So for us, the most requested month is October, followed by probably September and May, and then kind of April and November. So we have experimented with a kind of peak season pricing being a bit more than the rest of the year, which has actually worked quite well. Quite often couples are fairly open with dates. Sometimes they want a certain month or a certain date because of when they can get leave from work, or maybe it's an anniversary of when they first got together or when they got engaged. But a lot of times couples literally just say, we want to get married next year. When are you available? So that can then work quite well, in that you can kind of, if they want to pay top whack for October, great. Whereas if they have less budget and they're open for, one of the quieter months, then, we like to kind of spread our bookings out across the year so that you're not really burnt out, and, your editing schedule is well paced. So it kind of works for us and for them.
We have a base price of $3,500. But then basically you add on to that, because quite a lot of couples want the kind of the photo shoots and everything as well. So it can quite rapidly kind of stack up after that. So
if you're doing an engagement shoot, are you charging another full day on top of that? Or is it just at that point you're charging per that add-on type thing?
So we don't really do engagement shoots because it's often not worth our time, because we basically, that's the price we're going to charge. I mean, if they wanted to pay that, then we'd do it. But we can fill that time with, an actual elopement.
Sorry, I actually misspoke. I did in fact mean what we call an adventure session. So what you did with Dylan and Marissa the day before the wedding, you went to Sky. Sorry, that's what I meant. What do you call that?
We do that. Yeah, that's a per hour, but we set it's usually like a minimum of 4 hours for that. So you can you can define a price and it works out pretty well.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's always same as us. If someone wants an adventure session, it's always the day before or day after. It's not. Yeah. Although there was one time where it was 3 days after, and they went from where was it? Where was the wedding? Was it Borthwick? Borthwick, and then Skye. Yeah. And that's when I realised I've made a mistake with this pricing. It needs to be the day before or day after. But we're the same. We're minimum of. I think we're a minimum of 3 hours. Yeah. And then
honestly, because we charged £1,000 extra to go up to Skye. We made such a fucking botch of that pricing for that one. Okay, Borthwick, great wedding venue. They paid a good fair whack for that and all the extras that they added on for the wedding. And then to tickets to Skye. But alone to go to Skye for £1,000 does not work. It does not compute. However, had a great time. It was pishing it down. I loved that. I got to take, there was no photographer as well. So I got to take some images.
Oh, nice.
Using the cropped mode on my camera because I'm an idiot. Yeah. So,
because and you have to be clever about it the way, because we include our accommodation and stuff in the rate, but it's we've worked out deals with places that we stay across. Obviously we can travel there and back in one day in some places, but for all the kind of the parts of Scotland that we shoot often, we've kind of worked out like mates rates deals with property owners up there because we've been shooting there so often. And then the couple shoots often they have to work for where we are at the time. So it's kind of once we've arrived in the location, either the day before or the day after. If we are kind of shooting a popular time of year and we're going to be up in the sky, we'll quite often put some other elopements up there at that time because we can move couples into where we're going to be. Basically, it has to work logistically.
Nice.
And so that way you're kind of minimizing costs.
Well,
and time, which is travel time.
Yeah.
So you actually have time to do all the things.
How do you find if you're doing a day before or day after couple shoot? Do you find one works better than the other? Because we've definitely found day before the energy's there, the excitement's there, they're in the zone. Whereas quite often with the day after, they're having, and not just because they were really pissed the night before, it's just like the emotional energy of a wedding day. I think people quite often underestimate that. And the day after, I feel like they're quite often quite drained, like just emotionally drained. And sometimes they don't feel they've got the energy to do it. Do you find the same, or
I would 100% agree with that. If I'm honest, usually if it's after, I always worry and maybe this was just me, and because I was quite young when I got married, I was a mess. There's no way you could have taken my photograph the day after. Yeah. And what I was wearing was more or less trashed, not trash. That it sounds like I'm an idiot, but there is that degree of what happens if something spills on the dress, and then you're having to go to all this effort just for the low energy shoot that you can have after everyone's had a party and the groom's hungover and all that kind of stuff. I fully understand that. So
there's definitely
before is always
more of a sort of anticipation, that sort of sense of excitement if it's the day before. That definitely comes through. Yeah. But I feel like the ones we've done after have all been good though as well.
Oh yeah, they have. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but there's how many have we done after? Well, to be honest, we don't tend to do a lot of them. Yeah. So whenever we do get the chance, we always bring the energy and carry them through whatever we want to do.
And very often that's the other thing with elopements is one of the reasons why we like the morning prep so much, which is maybe a carryover from the more traditional type wedding, but it's something that we like to have as part of our elopements. I mean, we love morning prep, but it allows you to tune into the energy of the couple. And, some couples have all that energy and they're bubbly and they can't keep their hands off each other and, they're absolutely buzzing. And others are far more contemplative, and maybe not kind of demonstrative. And we think, well, we're going to have to inject some energy, a little bit of energy into stay and help guide them a little bit more. But that's why we like that morning prep period.
No, I like it as well, to be honest.
Actually, just on the kind of 4-hour elopement thing or half-day elopement thing, we've probably done two or maybe
one out of necessity because we had to do it so early in the morning. But
so there's probably only been 2 or 3 elopements where we haven't done morning prep and we just met the couple at the ceremony location. And we just found it really odd because obviously ceremonies are very emotional, very heartfelt. And it's almost like going on a first date with someone and having them declare kind of undying love. On the spot. It's like, whoa, it kind of comes out of nowhere. Where we sort of like to have that build up and that chance to kind of really bond with the couple. Obviously, we chat with couples in advance of their day, both when they book us, and then we typically have another Zoom chat with them about a month out, month in advance of their day, when we just go over all the plans and timings and things. But I just think actually spending that physical time with the couple in advance of their ceremony is just feels really, really valuable, both for us and for them. And also it allows couples to relax in front of the camera. So actually another thing that our elopement couples in particular say to us a lot is we're really awkward in front of camera. We hate having our photo taken, but can you get us some good photos? And we're like, sure, but it sort of takes that time for them to relax in front of the lens and with us. And I think by the time we finished morning prep, couples have kind of forgotten that the cameras are there. So it means that when they arrive in their ceremony, they're not kind of side-eyeing the camera the whole time, which we did notice a bit when we didn't do the morning prep and we just rocked up and met the couple at their ceremony spot, that they were still very kind of camera aware. So they were reading their vows and they were still, you could see them kind of watching the camera, which we thought, that's not what we want for them. We want them to be only focusing on each other and being very intentionally in the moment.
I'm going to say something maybe a little bit controversial, but I love it when a couple tell me that they don't like being in front of the camera, because I feel like that is them admitting that they don't do that often. It's not like people who are like, they're having a wedding day for the images. That's not, they're having a wedding day for the experience. And that's just how they live their life. They don't live their life in front of the camera. And I feel like we do a really good job of just like being present when we need to be present, but then just backing off to a degree where they can just have that moment. And it just looks and feels so much better in the video when they're not looking to be pristine for a picture when they're given their vows.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm editing this film at the moment where the groom, I feel like was like that, but the bride was all for the images, and this whole thing was just for the images. And it felt there was a point in the day where these two mindsets collided, because it was like the bride had a number of dress changes, makeup, and every dress change, like it took half an hour to an hour, and the groom was just like, like, we're supposed to be having this day, we're supposed to be experiencing these moments, and the bride was just nowhere to be seen for hours during the day. It felt
wow,
like I felt that from the groom. And then we went into speeches, and I could see him sieving a wee bit, just being annoyed. And I feel like he was just forcibly removed from the genuineness of this wedding. And I just I've just finished the wedding, the edit, but I still feel for him. I feel for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a real shame for him. That's a real shame.
Yeah. I mean, I think we definitely have had couples who are very motivated by the photography, but I feel and you do
not over and above their experience.
No, not over and above their experience, and it does tend to be the kind of the brides more than the grooms. We're just happy if like the groom's along, like fully participant, because sometimes and we talk to couples and the groom sits in the background and doesn't say anything and doesn't really look like he's just going to turn up. We're not like particularly interested in that, because we need them. We need takes two to tango.
I think I would say, if they both rock up and just give it their best effort, we will always be able to get something. That's all we ask is just kind of be there, with a kind of enthusiastic attitude, and we'll do the rest. And I think where it's been a bride and a groom, there have been a few occasions where you can tell, bless him, the groom really hates having his photo taken, but he loves his wife and he knows it's important to her, and so he's giving it his best effort for her. And I'm like, awesome, high five to you, let's go.
But also with inquiries, predominantly they come from the bride, but when you get them coming from the groom, you often get it can be a green flag moment, because you think, it's really nice when he's the guy kind of organizing this. That's really nice, because you've kind of solved part of the usual problem of the groom being invested in it.
Yeah. It's an interesting from a video perspective, because quite often video is seen as like techie. And the bride just doesn't want to deal with techie. Like, so we do get a few grooms being like, "Oh, I've been left to deal with you guys." I'm like, "Excuse me? What?"
It's still majority. If it's a bride and groom, majority is still the bride getting in touch. Yes. But you're right. Like quite often, we'll turn up in the wedding day and it'll be like, "Oh yeah, it was my job to find the filmmaker," and it's the groom saying that.
That's funny.
Good job. We're going to interrupt this podcast to bring you an advertisement for PickTime. Our buddies at PickTime, we love PickTime. If you want to elevate your business, PickTime's maybe the way to do it.
It's an online gallery delivery service.
It's a really good looking one, which is initially how we got into the service. It just looks better than all the other kind of platforms that we personally use.
Yeah. And we've over time got to know the owners, got to know the people behind it. Lovely people, great support system there as well.
There's just so many tools at your fingertips with PickTime, but the marketing and the blogs and the slideshow features.
Yeah, there's so much more than just a gallery delivery service. You've got all those things that Simon was talking about. You can create your own blog from it. You can create slideshows. One new feature that I really love is the vendor network. It's where you can use AI to curate a gallery for a specific supplier. So you could use AI to gather all the photos of the flowers and send them to the florist, and they would have that gallery specific just for them.
It's kind of a mind-blowing feature.
Yeah.
And we might as well be taking advantage of AI before the uprising and it starts taking advantage of us. So let's just all bear that in mind.
Yeah, and not to mention the built-in store, and that way you can just make more money while also having a nice, aesthetically pretty gallery.
Yeah. And if you want to sign up today, you can get a free month if you use Perspective at checkout.
Yeah.
So if you want to test it out for free for a month, go for it.
Take your business to the next level with PickTime.
Well, since this episode is, of course, sponsored by PickTime, let's talk about how you deliver your gallery. What's your process? Because and obviously, let's mention the fact that you are two PickTime ambassadors.
Yes.
So sell PickTime. I'm fed up of doing it.
What made you choose it?
what made you choose PickTime?
Choose it. Where do we find it? It was it had been someone else that recommended it, because we didn't start on PickTime. We tried a number of different delivery platforms, none of which really kind of floated our boat. I think
it's very user friendly, isn't it? PickTime. It displays well. We like being able
we like the feed. We like the way that looks, because that's just a different visual experience from just clicking through a light box of each individual image. We like the way of just structuring it the way that we want to structure it,
and the way you can do it in chapters, so you can kind of break the day down into chapters or into scenes, which I think is really nice. If couples want to quickly jump through. We also really like the fact that they've just bought out a kind of blogging platform that is really integrated with the gallery. So it's made it very, very quick and easy to just get blogs uploaded, which wasn't the case before. The one thing we would say, and I've been emailing PickTime about their blog platform this week, is it's not possible to do diptychs on mobile. So basically, we typically use a lot of diptychs because we're very much about kind of storytelling across a day. And that means that not every single image in a blog is going to be a 10 out of 10 banger. Some of them are there just for texture and sort of character and feel. But we wouldn't want those to be,
heroed.
Full frame. Yeah. So, those are the ones that are the diptychs.
So, what is a diptych? Sorry?
Two images together side by side.
Oh, right. Okay. Got you. Yes.
Sorry,
okay.
Yeah.
And there's also triptychs.
There's also triptychs.
Which are allowed on a mobile, but not diptychs.
Yes. So if you plan it out in the laptop format, the diptychs will display as diptychs, but when you flip it to the mobile format, they all become singles, which completely it changes the flow of the blog. So whereas you can do triptychs on both a laptop and a mobile, you can't for some reason do diptychs. So we have been discussing this with them, and the guy I was emailing agrees that you should definitely be able to do diptychs. So PickTime, we'd love to be able to do diptychs.
But I mean, also, they've introduced this ability to insert little bits of video, like video moments, into kind of the blog as well, which because because that hasn't really been easy to do, because we tried to do it with like animated GIFs and insert those into the blogs, but they create a lot of download time on a standard blog. And we love the idea of like shooting more moments, because we get envy of videographers sometimes, because sometimes you're in a scene and you're like, oh, this is a freeze frame. It's just not, the ripples across meadow grass, as a single shot, as a still boring. But as a video, that movement, and I'm just like, oh, we need to. But we didn't have like a vehicle to deliver that in a nice way until comparatively recently. But if you can just slip that in as a little scene break, fantastic. So now we can shoot more of those types of things.
Because also, I mean, we don't really shoot video, but we do shoot drone. So we've got a drone and we'll shoot both stills and video on it. And quite a lot of our couples just really love the idea of having a couple of cool drone shots of them in amongst some mountain epicness. And so it's nice to be able to just integrate that in the gallery when we deliver.
And then so we do sneak peeks, and that's when they get their first kind of an introduction to PicTime. And then when we send their kind of final gallery, we've got all the kind of the vendors set up for the shop as well. So we've got all our kind of favorite vendors that are available within PicTime, and obviously you can add additional vendors. You can kind of create your own sort of self-administered
what are you talking about?
No, so
I can see who does the back end.
If they don't have a particular product, as part of PicTime, you can create your own entity for that product, and then you just kind of do the administration for the ordering. But you can take the payment and everything via PicTime and present it on PicTime. And then we give couples a year of access to it, which is, I think, because it's funny in forums and stuff, you see some people with their platforms kind of give people maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And maybe it's because they don't have like the unlimited package, and so they're going to run out of space eventually. And maybe it's because they're starting out and it seems like an expensive outlay to kind of pay for that. But it really limits what the couple can do afterwards in terms of purchasing albums, anniversaries. So you've got to be there for that first anniversary at the very least, because that's you can set up a campaign for that, preferably well ahead of the starting a month out from the actual anniversary date, and start that kind of those campaigns going for albums and just prints. I mean, a lot of people just buy prints for something for their
and same with Christmas and Valentine's Day as well.
But family members will quite often buy as well. And then the other thing is that we can give them, you can decide whether they get to, you can basically set up so that they pay a fee to keep it going, which again, not many people do. And you can set that fee whatever you want. But what's funny is that people will keep paying that fee for years and years. And you shoot more and more weddings, and so it's just,
so you end up funding your own subscription.
Well, more, definitely more than fund the subscription. But it also just means that those that aren't interested in keeping it going, you can kind of then unload those if you want.
They can just download it and save it to their hard drive. Or whatever.
So sometimes when that kind of campaign goes out, you just see them downloading everything again, and then that's them done. But other times, people just keep renewing.
Greg, tell Katy and Jim about your hero moment recently. About
hero moment.
That's how you described it.
Which
you
is
said hero moment.
There was a couple recently that their gallery expired, and then they were like, "Oh man, I was meaning to buy something, but it's expired now. Like, is there any way to still access it?" I was like, "Don't worry, I'll extend it for you." So, cost me nothing to just click renew that gallery for an extra 3 months. I was like, there you go, your gallery is active again for 3 months, and the discount code's still valid. And they're like, oh, amazing. So
we've had that. We've had that. Sometimes people just don't see the thing, and then they come back saying, "Oh, we're trying to access our photos and we can't." And then it's a bit more awkward because the nice thing about setting automations is that it's slightly less personal. They're dealing with the platform. It's not us. But when they're asking you directly, can we have access to it? Then it's hard to turn around and say, it's this much, right? Rubbish about talking about, money directly to couples. You don't want to have that conversation. You want it to be sort of dealt with by something else so that you can maintain that nice kind of friendship relationship.
Yeah. I actually do. People might know this, and I just want to go back to something you mentioned about SEO and video stuff. You get penalized quite heavily for having video content on your blog. Just want to say that right off the bat, because it takes so long to load. Right. So if you're working on your SEO, considering less videos. Fucking nightmare being videographers, by the way. Honestly, every year I go through the mentality of maybe now is the time that we shift from video to photos. And every year there's something else that just teeters me closer to the edge of wanting to be a photographer. Son of a bitch. Anyway,
what's stopping you? What's stopping you?
Is that
fear?
What do you feel is different about shooting stills shooting video?
I think first of all, I like working with people. Mm-hmm. I love going to a wedding, and there's always going to be someone there that I can run ideas off and have fun with.
Almost always a photographer at a wedding.
Yeah.
We've only shot 2 or 3 where there's not been.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I've always got Greg, Yeah. But he hears me talk every day. There's only so much talking he can deal with. So yeah, I just like seeing people and seeing how they work. But I don't know, it is also a different medium. Like doing the work is not the same. Or same gear, but frame rate, shutter speeds, that kind of stuff. I hate trends. Not a big fan of trends.
It's also the same as you were saying. There's some moments where you're like, oh, this moment works for a still. It just doesn't work for video. And like you were saying on the flip side, it works for video sometimes. There's times where we'll be like, oh man, it's just not worth capturing this in video because it doesn't do it. It's not doing it right. But it's not a common thing that. It's just a few.
Because we've worked pretty collaboratively with videographers and hopefully yourselves over the years. And that's nice because, we're not always just taking the lead, because there are moments that are very visual, very movement oriented, that are better for film. And I felt like, it's that sense of teamwork that, you guys have got that content. Like we don't need to kind of try and jump in and get that, some still of that, because we've got plenty, but that's kind of like, that's a videography moment.
I think we've always discussed this. One of the things that we really like about working with you guys is we feel like we're getting something different, and you're not constantly in our shots. So there have been some video teams
who shoot video like photographers.
Basically, they've always been exactly where we want to be, and just shooting exactly what we're shooting. And we always sort of thought, kind of, what's the point? And you're literally just getting a moving version of our still, whereas you guys are coming at it, with a different mindset and a different mentality, and a different visual eye. So we know that whatever you're getting is going to be complementary to what we're getting, and is going to capture memories of a couple's day in a slightly different way that's going to be really valuable to them.
And we shot Elopement last May, Shelby's, with a US videography team who are good friends of this. She's actually a wedding photographer, and it was so seamless. Like every time I would be shooting away, and then we'd turn around to him and say, do you want to do your bit? He's like, no, I've got what I need.
Yeah.
And we didn't see him. He's just like just floating around.
Yeah.
He's like, I got my thing. And I'm like, wow, okay. Let's go.
Who was it so I can check out their work? Can you remember the name?
Aura and Endy. So it's AURA and Endy, and Endy is ENDI.
Hang on, we're just trying to find
that. Is that how they come up as?
They're a husband and wife team as well. They had a little baby in tow as well. So
we're taking turns to hold the baby while
she's kind of shooting whilst minding the baby, which was an amazing feat of multitasking. We've also shot with Jay and Mac, US photographers as well.
Yeah, so Aura and Endy Films, if you Google them, they come up. So it's AURA.
Aura and Mac.
So it's Endy. Aura and Endy.
Oh, Endy, sorry.
ENDI.
Yeah, ENDI.
Got you.
And then Jay and Mac, are also US photographers who are also very awesome.
They would be good showing too.
They would be all, I'd recommend them.
I definitely know of them. I don't think we've reached out to them, but I know of them.
You should do. They'd be awesome.
I'm pretty sure I recently was talking to them.
Were you?
Wasn't I? I think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Working as a larger team and like photo and video,
cool.
It is good to just be able to get, at times, just go, well, I'll get this off-angle shot that's not the main shot. Mm-hmm. But it's also good to just step back and go, I can take a second just to reset my mind, just have a break while the other team's getting their shot.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And that's exactly what we've always said about working as a duo over a single, is that, sometimes you just have a creative brain freeze. Or the gear, there's like an error thing come up on your camera and stuff. And you've got to or it's gone into like some auto mode by pressing a number of buttons that you can't figure out how to get out of. And so you can just step aside and your partner kind of rolls in and fills the space and carries on. And that's brilliant, because sometimes you just hit that point where you're like, what are we going to do now? And so we just hand off.
I've only ever shot 2 elopements solo, and I really found it was a very different experience, because I think we are very much a kind of duo on the day, and having it all on me, it felt like a lot. And I have a lot of respect for other elopement photographers who shoot solo, because I think doing it on your own and bringing all the energy and all the artistry and looking out for your couple all on your own,
dealing seamlessly with equipment malfunctions or fogged up lenses or whatever.
Oh man, yeah. That I think that's why we have never shot solo. Is because I'm just like, there's so many elements that need to come together, and I just feel like I'd be missing moments having to deal with like setting up of the ceremony or fiddling with mics, or there's just so many things that need to happen on a technical level for video at the same time as other things that happen. And I feel like I don't want to sacrifice the genuine. For example, my favorite part is always when and I most of the time I try and pull this quite hard in the video, is when the dad sees his daughter for the first time. Love that moment, but it's always 10 minutes before they leave for the ceremony, and I wouldn't be able to set up for the ceremony without Greg being there. So that would be a moment that would be sacrificed nearly every time. Yeah, but it's so prominent in our films usually.
Yeah.
So I don't know how solo people do it. How do you do it, guys? How do you do it?
Respect.
Like storytelling's obviously quite prominent in your work, and you've mentioned it a few times already. Do you think some of that influence and emphasis on storytelling comes from your documentary background, Katy?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. As a director, you're thinking about how to tell a story through images, and you're writing a script that is it's partly about the narrative, and it's partly about the content, and then it's partly about thinking what settings can we go to tell this, what's going to be the sort of visual tapestry across the film. You don't want all the scenes to kind of look and feel the same. You don't want them to be paced in all the same way. You want some that are going to be faster, some that are going to be more epic, some that are going to be quieter and more intimate. And I think when I was directing, I'd always be shooting with a camera crew. And so I guess it was a really awesome education in working with a ton of award-winning cameramen, seeing how they shot, where their eye went. And I guess that was a kind of, visual education for me. I think what was challenging for me when we kind of moved into photography was I am not a technical person. Like, I'm the kind of person who does not like reading instructions. I just want the thing to work. Whereas Jim is the opposite. Jim is the small print guy, which is great because it means I don't have to. But yeah, when we came to shoot weddings, I literally just thought if I was directing a documentary of this couple's day, what's the first shot? Then what are we going to see? Then what are we going to see? And so, although technically, when I first met Jim, I did not know how to use a camera off the manual mode. Like, literally, I was clueless. But I did feel it was kind of like a kind of intuitive thing. It's just like I just knew the shots, whether or not I could operate the camera well enough to get the shots was another thing, but I knew the shots that I wanted to get, so I felt very sure about that. And I think basically the thing that Jim taught me was how to use a camera, like how to be technically proficient enough in order to get the shots that were inside my head.
Because I shot a few weddings before meeting Katy, but I was very much of that. They were kind of traditional weddings down in England, and it was very much portrait, bit of landscape, but and a few details, but without a storytelling element. There was no reason for them being there and I think working with Katy, starting to narrate the movement between places and the real that pacing of the day. How do people arrive there? What did they see when they got there? What are they standing on? What's around them? All of those different visual elements and those cutaways you bring into stills as much as into film movie, and that makes a huge difference, because sometimes you look at people's blogs and there's a couple in a scene and they're just doing something, and there'll be like endless pictures of them in various permutations in that same scene, and then suddenly they're somewhere else, and then suddenly they're somewhere else, and you're like, where's the journey? What are they looking at? What are they standing on?
Where are those transitional elements?
Yeah,
absolutely. The narrative. The
narrative.
So,
and I think just one thing I also feel that really kind of fed in from kind of directing television into photography is a lot of the time I did a lot of kind of BBC4 documentaries with Oxford professors who were the top of their tree intellectually, but were really awkward. They'd never been on camera before and they were really awkward, and so you just had to get very good at making them look good, which is about making them kind of relax and be themselves. And I feel like kind of when we're working with a couple, typically it's me that gives more gentle direction to the couple, and it's very much the same thing that I would do when I was working with some Oxford academic. That when you get the couple who are like, we're really awkward and stiff, it's the same kind of techniques that you use to just to relax.
She distracts them, and then I kind of nail the B-roll. The fun shots.
I want to go back to this storytelling narrative thing, because I feel like when I started getting into video, I bought a whole load of books about scene building and building up tension and how to relieve tension and where do you place it to provoke certain feelings, and what would that mean. Even to lighting, although that doesn't really apply with weddings, as it's not like you have a gaffer at a wedding. It's just, you have to work with the available light that you're given, other than the dancing, or sometimes we'll throw up a light for the speeches. But then at that point, you're just working with one light source, and in a dingy Scottish castle with no electricity anywhere. Like, there's never a power point anywhere from a lamp.
Who designed these castles?
Honestly, it's anyway. Where was I going with this thought? I've completely
narrative.
Yes. I did a lot of research into all these things through books and stuff, but storyteller, that word has been used in the same way that a filmmaker, like as wedding videography, they used to use the word cinematic. It's like it's a non-word, but it means something, but it can be translated into anything. And when I see photographers who call themselves storytellers, but when I look at their gallery, I'm just like, what are you talking about? What on earth is, like, when they are they just using the word because they don't understand it, or are they just like, oh well, a photograph says 1,000 words, so there's a story in every image type thing? Totally contradictory to the way that films are designed and how I imagine a gallery to be like. So for like, what am I trying to get at? What is your thoughts on this word and how photographers use it, and how can photographers and I don't want to keep bullying photographers. It's videographers as well. Like, how can they better achieve this accolade of a storyteller, but actually have it mean that they are a storyteller? Like, what are the elements that they can put into the blog or into their work?
Yeah.
I'd say kind of in terms of television, I always remember when I was a researcher, I called up the edit and spoke to the editor about what archive they were looking for. The director was out of the room and I said, how's it going? And he just let out this huge kind of exhausted sigh. And he said, oh, it's really hard to make or to put together a scene when all you've got is a succession of shots of the same size, basically. So they'd been out and they just got a bunch of wide, loads and loads and loads of wides. It was a whole program about buildings. So just tons and tons of wide shots of this building and nothing else. So basically what he was editing together was essentially a slideshow of moving stills, all of the same size. So I think probably one of the easiest and most obvious ways to make your photography cinematic is having a variety of shot sizes from, you know, say the couple are getting ready in a cottage in the mountains. You've got, you know, the big establishing shot of, you know, this little tiny cottage surrounded by mountains. And then maybe you've got the kind of mid shot where you're shooting through some trees or something and the cottage is just kind of peeking out. And then you've maybe got a kind of close up of the bride. She's in the window putting some makeup on and you're shooting a tight shot of her face and then maybe coming right inside with like the lip, you know, her lips and the lipstick or something. So it's kind of drawing you into the scene. It's kind of intriguing you and it's giving you a feel for what it was like to be there, I would say.
And I mean, it's the irony is that whilst photography is stills, when you're using it to tell a story, you really, I think, do benefit from borrowing heavy from film and TV in terms of the structure. So you're actually using kind of a narrative that is borrowed from moving images. And, you know, we get quite a lot from just watching really good, you know, TV series.
What was that one with all the weird angles that you were talking about?
I was just...
Homecoming.
No, it wasn't. It was The Umbrella Academy.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I've not watched that.
And I had it on in the background and I wasn't sure that I was going to be into it, but actually I ended up getting really into it. And then I just started noticing the camera angles are fantastic. Just different positions, completely different positions. Even like there was a scene where he's banging on a vending machine and the usual shot is, you know, from the side, from the back, and then looking out from the vending machine. I'm like, that's all tri-territory. But they did like just a shot straight up with him like banging on, looking straight up the front of the vending machine. I was like, that's interesting. And all the way through, and I just started cataloging this. And I was watching Eric, which is, again, I think it's a Netflix one, set in the 80s. It's Benjamin Cumberbatch and a missing kid. And again, just some of the angles there and the way that they piece together scenes. And so you can start, you know, this is obviously a lot of stuff I've picked up from Katy, but not joining the dots. You know, Katy was doing it and I'm watching these TV series. But the trouble is that when you watch TV series, you get drawn into it and you stop analyzing why you're liking it and why it works. Yeah. But even a guy walking down a corridor towards a door and, you know, you have the shot of the back of the guy heading towards the door. You might look back towards him from the door. There might be a reflection in a window or a picture. Hand on the door handle. You know, it's all these different. They're pictures that then lead people along with the character through the scene. Whereas if you just arrive at places and everything's the same focal length, it just doesn't work. So we use 5 different focal lengths, and again, that becomes your visual grammar as well, because I suppose one of the things I read, because there's been a move towards more zoom lenses because they're getting so good that you can have like this, you know, f2s and stuff across the entire range. And they're really enticing. But one of the things that I saw someone mention or discuss was that when people flip to zooms, they sometimes stop using their original kind of prime points. And it changes the look of their storytelling. It loses a coherence a grammar, because you're used to shooting with 50, 35, 85, 100, and we also shoot a 28 as well. And there is a grammar to that. And if you start just sliding into a 40 and a 70, it just subtly changes the dynamic.
Yeah. That's always something, like when we speak to a photographer who has made that change to Zoom, it's always something one of the first things I ask them is, do you find yourself falling back to like the 35 when you zoom in? And they never know. They're always like, oh, I need to look back and check the metadata. But
Katy
it's interesting.
We started with a zoom. We had a like, it was like a studio zoom 24 to 100. And Katy always noticed that it was always about 50 to 55.
Right.
All my shots were 50 to 55.
That was just Jim sees the world through a 50 millimeter lens.
Over 50.
Are you more landscape or vertical?
Landscape.
I'm trying to shoot more portrait, because obviously you can fill it a bit more nicely with portraits and stuff. But
I just feel like most of the time we're out shooting a couple in a landscape. So kind of obviously the landscape format kind of lends itself to the situation.
But it's also the screen, it's like we're all getting sucked into creating something that people hold in their hand. But my love is still of cinema and TV. And it's like, that's the framework. That's the majestic image. So yes, there are definitely portrait compositions that I love, but we do tend to default. It's going to be what 80-20 probably.
Even if that, maybe even 90-10. Rarely. I think once we'd probably shoot more portrait inside when the couple are getting ready. Once we're outside, we rarely, we do, but mainly, definitely if it's a couple out and about in the landscape, a lot of what we're going to be shooting.
And it makes it a pain for social, but Katy's very good at just pulling together lovely kind of structures that allow you to have the landscape, but still in the context of
a story, like Instagram story or whatever.
I was having this I was not having this conversation. I was re-listening. So I've been re-going back through old episodes of the podcast because I'm concentrating on writing blogs and gathering thoughts and stuff. And one of the things that I picked up on again was the fact, it was listening to Dylan Kitchener, and he was talking about his lens choice. And he had moved back from wherever it was, primes, to zoom lenses. And he was talking about how in cinema they tend to have, they don't tend to go totally open with their aperture. They there's the less depth of field, and I've been thinking about this recently with regards to film sets and why they have these lenses, and they don't use lenses that have like 1.4 aperture or whatever. Obviously, that's a very general term, obviously. And camera's known for shooting Super 16 and not 35mm, that sort of thing. Not as much of a worry now, because obviously people shoot in all sorts of formats. IMAX is massive. But my thought was, I was trying to think about why I like prime so much. And obviously it is the fact that I can shoot at 1.4. And I was thinking, why do I like to shoot that way? Because if cinema doesn't do that, then why am I trying to do something that cinema's not when I'm trying to replicate cinema? And my thought was, cinema has all these different departments that come together to create an image. And very much like, to get depth, you are controlling the light, you are adding haze, you are putting in all these foreground elements to design every single shot that you see, let alone adding the narrative in the script and all that kind of stuff. Whereas for wedding filmmaking, there's none of that. It's purely documentary. So I use a wide open aperture because I don't have control of anything else, in the world. So if I'm able to, like, I can't spotlight someone to draw attention that way. I can maybe pull that out in a color grade, maybe. But if I wanted to negate someone in the back or whatever, the depth of field is all I really have control of. So that was my brain fart thought
No, it's true. And I think people think that, you know, it's like on really sunny days. I mean, some people are real wizards at handling it, but, you know, when you have the most stark light, so I've been a background actor I was on The Outlaw King, and I spent 14 weeks basically stood in a muddy ditch in various places
14 weeks?
Yeah, well, it's on and off for all the scenes while they were making it. So I kind of did the full thing, the joys of being freelancer at that time. And you got to see all the production behind the scenes. It was really quite interesting. And on the really sunny days, they just have these banks and banks of light to fill in all the shadows and stuff. You know, it's an insane amount of light, except, you know, and then in the evening, they're actually quite simplistic lighting because, you know, they didn't have to light everything else. They just had to light the characters. So it just and I'm often telling couples that, you know, on really sunny days, you know, in the movies, they have banks of lighting to deal with sunny days, which we don't have. So you're just left dealing with all these shadows, or you just don't do it. Basically, you just don't go out in it. But
yeah, but yeah, I could talk about cinema for days, probably just all these. Anyway, let's not.
We talk about some of Katy and Jim's photos.
Yeah,
let's
go because we're running a wee bit over. Sorry, Katy and Jim.
No worries, no good.
Fun fact: I might have told you about this before, but when we first started working with you, I found it really hard to remember your names. So I made up this little song, Katy and Jim, Katy and Jim, na, 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 because of the old BBC cartoon Rosie and Jim. Rosie and Jim. Yeah. Rosie and, so that was how I remember.
Rosie's a much better name than Katy. I'd much rather be called Rosie.
But yeah, that was what I had to do. Sorry. Anyway. Let's get talking about your work. Can you see the screen first of all?
Yeah.
Is it clear enough? Okay, great. So first image I picked was this one, and you've got a few in your portfolio of this ridge.
Yeah.
So it is obviously a place that you like to shoot. I couldn't remember. I can't figure out where it is exactly.
It's Skye.
It is Skye.
Yeah.
But I don't know where. You don't have to tell me. It's fine. But the reason I picked this over the other images that you had shot was because and you had done this kind of framing of the V. So just beautifully, like composition wise, perfect with the valleys and the leading lines leading to the couple. But not only that, the degree of this haze coming through the valley and the quality of light perfectly hitting this ridge. Just there's like leading lines on the left, on the right, and then there's this lovely highlight of this ridge leading to the couple, and obviously they're backlit. I'm a huge fan of that. Just love this shot, and in the fact that you're not one of these photographers that like do anything too crazy with your color grade, like grade. You're with your presets. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like this is Scotland. You have kept the greens. Yes. Sorry to anyone who warms their greens up. I'm really sorry. I like that style of work too, but I don't know. I appreciate the greens a lot more. But it's a very just a beautiful image. Now, in my head, I thought, oh, maybe this is a drone shot, but I'm assuming it's maybe not.
I don't think that is.
We do sometimes shoot. Quite often, Jim's on the drone when we shoot that shot, and I'm not
sure we were using a drone a lot at that time. That was the first time we shot at that particular kind of composition.
It's been interesting, actually. I mean, it just shows, I guess, the beauty of elopement photography that, yes, we've shot in that spot several times, but we've never, ever had light quite like that.
That was in November.
So
that was a sunny
really
November day.
November, but the light was just very low.
And so you can't, it's very difficult to kind of replicate that shot because the sun's way off in an extreme angle and also very low. And so it's really just scraping over the top of the...
It really is,
yeah.
And I think, I mean, we have endless battles about the color green, but when it's measured, when it's not filling the entire thing, you know those landscapes where it's green everywhere. That's a bit much. But when you have little strips of it, then then just let it be green.
I think the other thing that we really notice shooting outdoors in Scotland a lot is how much the aspect of the sun changes throughout the year. So there are some spots that just don't work, in certain months because
the parts of Glencoe that literally get no direct sunlight at any point during the latter part of December. There's none that goes into the glen.
Yeah. Anything else that you can tell me about this image? Focal length or aperture?
That's probably an 85.
It's probably 85 or 100.
105, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we are kind of stood at a bit of a distance.
Yeah. So we're stood right back.
We bought a drone so we got a zoom. Not a zoom, it's got it's the Mavic 3 Pro.
So it's got that.
Just so we can actually get that compression a bit, while also putting people in that situation, because it's always little people, big landscape, which is nice, and some couples love that, and we love that. But sometimes it would be nice to have the same thing, but we actually see some more detail of the couples. So,
although you have found it's actually quite difficult to fly.
It's really difficult to fly when you're zoomed in.
It just
very easy to get lost.
Yeah.
I had never thought about that before. Yeah, you would actually.
Because the landscape moves so quickly when you're on a zoom.
Yeah.
Never
thought about that before. Good to know. But yeah. This I just had a big smile when I saw this image.
Yeah.
Big fan of the fact that it's black and white. As everyone knows, I like black and white, but just it was such an unusual thing to see in your portfolio, because usually you're prepared for the rain and you go with it. But I feel like they weren't prepared for there's something something that just strikes, oh shit, it's turned.
Yeah, there's a bit of chaos here.
We need to just fucking get out here, which I love. Everything's people are picking up chairs. There's rain that you've just perfectly frozen. The bride's actually having a great time in the pissing rain.
Absolutely.
And I feel like it just makes me smile. So where is this? What happened? Tell me the behind the scenes.
It's actually a snowstorm.
So this was probably the last one that we shot. It was the last one we shot before lockdown. So this was like mid-March.
March 2020.
2020. It was a couple, they were from
all Australia,
so not super used to Scottish weather. It was in the borders. What I can't even remember.
It's Cringletie.
Yeah.
Just near Peebles.
Cringletie House. So it's actually, we feel quite conflicted about this image, partly because we just associate it with COVID and lockdown. Partly because it was a more traditional wedding than we would typically shoot.
Yeah.
But the couple had booked us, I think, 2 years previously. Yeah. So it was kind of when they booked us, it was very early.
And they're very into our photography.
Yeah, they were very into, super lovely couple, super lovely family. The venue is kind of more traditional in its mindset, I would say. So it was very much, covers on the chairs, bows on the back of chairs. So they planned to have this outdoor ceremony. Classic March weather, started off sunny, and then the snowstorm came in from nowhere. And then there was this this moment where I think they were literally just in the middle of exchanging their vows. And there was this moment of, do we just carry on? Do we just kind of power through this? Yeah. And then I think that the planner basically
our feeling was it will just pass really quickly.
Yeah,
let's just stay outdoors because the light's nice and everything. But the starting pistol was fired and everything just moved.
Yeah, so the planner just kind of took charge and everyone just ran inside.
Yeah, but it was a hilarious little kind of candid moment. Because that was just pure glee on her face.
Yeah, she's very joyful, bright.
Yeah.
This looks to me like a 35. I could be wrong, obviously. Not knowing the position of where you get.
I was going to say that's Jim's shot, so I'd say it's probably a 50.
50, right? Okay. And have you said something really funny here, Katie? Is it because they're laughing at you? And
I think it was a very elemental moment because it was very cold and it wasn't just rain. It was snow. It was maybe even hail or something. It was it's that kind of thing that's stinging your face. So I think she's just responding to the kind of exhilaration of the moment, really.
Yeah. I love that. Great.
Next one.
Yes.
Yes.
One of our earliest photos.
So this is from the first elopement that we ever shot.
That's probably one of our oldest photos.
Yeah, and that's Jim's cousin Hannah and her partner John, who had been together since they were 15. Is that right?
14 when
14,
they met.
yeah. And they, what was it? I can't remember which anniversary it was. It was like their 17th anniversary.
13th or something anniversary.
So yeah, they were childhood sweethearts. They lived in, or when they were growing up, they lived in Westeros, and so they kind of wanted to go back there. They'd been planning, or they'd been trying to plan a kind of big wedding with tons of people. And then we're just getting really kind of overwhelmed by logistics and practicalities. And we're kind of at that point of falling out of love with their own wedding. And then it was Hannah's mum who said, why don't you just elope? And Hannah was like, hey, that sounds like a great idea. So they did.
So it's actually, it was basically the first kind of elopement that we did, and I feel like we kind of nailed it. Really,
it's still on our website.
It's still on our website, and we built an elopement business pretty much off the back of most of those images.
Yeah, that's amazing. The fact that it's got such a personal connection to your family is nice and meaningful.
Yeah.
The reason I picked it is because you see a lot in forums and stuff about video people and photographers complaining about each other, and I've seen you take these pictures. These are like live in the moment during the ceremony. You go up very quickly and just capture it. And I feel like I have no problem with that ever.
Yeah.
But lots of photographers and video people, they do have a problem with that. And I just wanted to hear if you've ever worked with someone who's ever had an issue with you doing this.
No one's ever had an issue, but we've definitely...
They haven't said they've had an issue. Maybe they did have an issue.
We were talking to all these French traditional photographers that were at this conference, and they were all talking about how... And also, even at Legacy, we were talking to some of the people at Legacy last year, and they would never get that close to a couple during a ceremony. And we're like, but it's only instantaneous, and no one notices. Like we've all the often family members, if there's anyone watching, and we'll do this even at kind of like more traditional, bigger weddings. We'll tell the couple that we will be coming in a little bit close and stuff, but no one seems to notice us. It's because they are kind of focused on the couple. And
I think if you're swift, I think if you spend ages obscuring the view, both for the videographer, it helps
to know the shot you're after
and the planner and the guests, then obviously you are being intrusive. But I think if you can go and get your shot swiftly and then get the heck out the way. I think I am more aware if we're shooting with videographers, obviously there's certain kind of money shots that we both want to get. So whatever the ring going in or the first kiss or whatever.
I mean, there's been times where we haven't shot those shots because we know a videographer's kind of
they need
the
whole movement.
That shot.
But then typically we just pick it up afterwards. We just say to the couple at the end of the ceremony, hey guys, do you mind if we just redo the close up of your rings going on? And then by the time they get their full gallery, they don't remember that they just read it. It doesn't matter. It's just a shot, isn't it?
I mean, so we do that a lot. We recreate the ring going on, and we get closer with the 35 usually. And it's funny because they never can do it properly. It's always like, oh, sorry, my fingers have swollen. It's like forcing them. I'm like, I don't remember this during your ceremony. It's like, oh no, I think it was, I don't know, the adrenaline just, I don't know, something. I'm like, all right, okay, it's fine. It's
definitely a situation for still photography. Then,
but like I said, I've never minded if a photographer needs to dive in and grab a shot like this. Even if you're like, because you do get quite close, you're like leaning straight in, but then you're out. You don't linger. You're very aware of yourselves.
Again, this is one of those images that lead into the storytelling aspect. Like that's a much tighter angle. You've got your wide of the ceremony. This is one of your tights. So it's needed.
The shots don't come off well with a zoom. You see people trying to do it with a zoom and it just doesn't look right because it doesn't look like you're close. It just looks like you've embiggened the thing that you're taking a picture of.
You've embiggened. Yes, that is actually perfect. Yeah. I think so. Interesting that you said that because I, as a filmmaker, feel like I get quite close sometimes. And even like there has been moments where we shoot like a really like there's venues where we've shot with a lot of people, but it's in quite a tight space. I want to say like Dylan and Marissa was actually kind of like a good example of that, where we're in the forest, people are sat down, they're all like around. And I remember being crouched down, and quite often I am on my knees.
I remember you there, yeah.
I'm on my knees, hands like shooting with my 35, usually cropped in digitally. And I'm holding, hopefully I'm out the way. Maybe I should ask you, do I appear out the way?
No, you are out the way.
Okay. I want to feel like I'm out the way. And there's been even times that I've been like really close, like closer than some of the family. And I've been down at that angle, which is it's an interesting angle to be at, because you probably wouldn't think it would look good being low down, and you maybe would think, oh, double chins or whatever it is. But it always seems to work with cinema. And I want to be that close, not just because I have a 35 and I don't want to switch off the 35 because I enjoy it so much, but just the fact that it feels so voyeuristic when I'm like, because we used to shoot side on, like 45 degrees angle with the bride and groom, 70 to 200s, but it just felt, there's no other word that I can say about voyeuristic. I don't want to feel like I'm looking into something. I want to give the perspective like we are in it. Because when you watch it back, that's how you want to feel. But I can understand that there's like it can be quite challenging to balance. So but I know that some people have this issue with being this close because they say, well, why didn't you just fake it after? Why don't you just fake these shots after?
I don't know. Sometimes they feel forced or made up. You know, that's just. I mean, I
don't think there's any real need to fake it after if it's an elopement. I could see the. You know, there's no need. You're just in the moment. The couple are focused on each other. You're not spending ages encroaching on their personal space. You know, you move in, you get the shot, you step aside. I think, I could see in a larger wedding where there's more guests around, you're obscuring the view for the guests, then you know, you could. But I think that the danger with picking stuff up later is quite often the moment's gone and you forget, or something, you know, the couple have walked down the aisle, everyone's getting the confetti out, everyone wants to hug them, you know, the day's just moved on. And I think it's kind of something I learned in television, really. You just need to get the shots at the time, because if it's a key shot that you absolutely know you need to cut together the sequence, you know, there's a real danger that you just don't get it if you don't get it at the time.
Oh my God. How often have I turned to you and be like, Greg, you need to remind me to do portraits. I need to get portraits. And then I forget or whatever. I've given these shots probably too much consideration. Because you see people complaining all the time, but there's like this correlation between the exact, like, what am I trying to say here? You can have a shot of a hands during the actual real moment that there's a feeling being expressed in the real world and capturing that, whereas the same image holding hands and that doesn't exist because you're just recreating an image. And I feel like for weddings, I feel like the genuine moment that this is happening is the reason why we want to capture these images. Not because of the image of hands holding themselves, but because of what's happening.
There's subtle, like, body language things there that if you were to ask them to hold hands, they would hold slightly different, and it would just change the feel of that image.
I mean, I think this one was as they were actually exchanging their vows. And I think, you know, you can feel the kind of tenderness and the trust between them.
I mean, in video, you'd have seen his thumbs rubbing over her hands, which was freezing cold. And, you know, she's a tiny wee thing. So he was just trying to keep her hands warm as well.
But there's something to be said about like capturing the genuine something behind an image, not just recreating it just because it looks good.
Sure.
I always, you can skip the image. There's one of my favorite moments that I actually didn't capture. It was when I was shooting in the sky and it was Tom, our camera guy. He was shooting, I think it was the bride speaking, but there was this little robin that just landed at their feet. And during the vows, he came off the bride saying her vows to like capture this robin. And I thought, I don't think I would be that brave. And maybe just because it wasn't his wedding, so he didn't have that pressure. I don't think I would be that brave to come off of someone saying their vows, to look at a bird. But then there was a beauty in the fact that that bird had come around at the exact time. And it was just this lovely pan down. And it's just like, what is, like, especially when you're giving your vows, like if you've ever been married and you've been there giving your vows, it's so hard to see the world outside of yourself. And then for the filmmaker to give this viewpoint, this perspective of what is happening right at your feet that they definitely didn't see it. This kind of beautiful, natural moment happening. It was just this lovely shot of something real during something that was super important. I don't know, the juxtaposition of
part of our responsibility is to capture the things that the couple aren't seeing on the day, especially a bigger day, because they know what they look like.
And also, I guess, you know, in that moment, you're going to be recording the vows, you know, so you can be on the robin, but you're still recording the audio. So they still got their vows. And obviously you can kind of edit whatever over it visually. So I think kind of, recording that really spontaneous, unusual, and, you know, it feels quite like a kind of beautiful, natural blessing on their wedding, doesn't it? You know, it's like having a rainbow on your wedding day or something. It feels just something kind of very beautiful and fortuitous. I think that was a cool thing to have captured.
It's also got that, I mean, so I'm a big old atheist. I don't believe in supernatural things whatsoever. Karma doesn't exist. Bad luck, good luck. These are just things that we put onto things that happen. But I do know that couples do believe in these things. So if they have like a relation with like a grandfather or something that passes away, quite often they put meaning onto things. And if you're able to capture those things and they can apply meaning to them in a way that you maybe wouldn't have, that there's something magical in that.
Well, I think if it means something lovely to them, that's kind of all that matters, isn't it? Really, like whether it was God or whether it was serendipity or whether it was whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, the fact is it was there and it happened and it meant something special to them, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. Very hard to capture as well. Very hard to capture. Anyway, so this next image, and I think maybe the last image?
I think it is,
Okay. This couple appear to be in a bathtub.
Backlit in an outdoor hot tub in January.
Wow. Okay. So I had maybe thought, because sometimes when I pick images and I show them to photographers, they're like, "Oh, that was a workshop."
No, these are.
And I was wondering if this, real. I mean, this seems, again, there's a messiness to the imperfection of the light, which I think these perfections sometimes only happen during weddings when you are trying to capture the moment, so you're having to just rig something up very quickly. So maybe this is a light on a car or something.
No, this is we bought. Katie's holding that light.
Right. Okay.
It's absolutely pitch.
So it's pitch black.
Pitch black.
So it's what, like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, probably in January. Very cold outdoors.
Damn.
This was just at the end of their day. It was just before we left them. So we'd had a whole kind of awesome day running around.
We literally left them with no lights because we had the only lights. I think they had their phones down on the edge of the tub somewhere. But we're
nice.
like, do you realise that when we go, it is going to be absolutely pitch dark?
The thing that we love most about this image was when the couple messaged us 3 months later to say they were pregnant. So that was their wedding.
Nice.
It was pretty steamy.
Yeah, it was steamy.
Yeah. So I mean, did they just have this idea to go into the bath and have you shoot them, or was this your idea? Or
I think
we discussed it with them.
We saw, when we hadn't been to the venue before, when we Googled it, we saw there was a hot tub. And we just thought, it would be a cool thing to do as just the final chapter of their day. We knew we bought the light anyway because the interior was quite dark, so it was a kind of castle interior. So we'd used it to do a kind of first dance and things in front of the fire there. And then, nice. we knew it was going to be, was that a smoke bomb or is that all just?
No, it's just all, that's just steam.
So we kind of came prepared. They bought their swimming togs and, we just went for it really. I know, I think Nicole, she's a very visual person. So I think she'd probably been consuming quite a lot of, I don't know, dirty boots and messy hair type blogs. So I think she kind of got the vibe. And they just kind of bought the energy. They were good fun. They were a very fun couple.
Yeah. Because there's some couples where if you suggest something like this or whatever, they'd maybe not be able to visualize it and be like, "What? Why do you want a photo of me in there?" But if the couple are into it and know what it's going to look like, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, it was a cool image. I like it. Big fan of the backlight. I think that's as we move out with summer, I get more excited about shooting in the dark because I like that image. I would do that all day. Like we've got an LED in the bag. I would just rest it on something, or get Greg to hold it. Although usually I also have a miniature fog machine on me, so I need to delegate. I'm like, which one do I give Greg? Do I give him the smoke and do I give him the light? I don't know. But there's always that, and I just love it. Just love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's our next question, Greg?
So we're getting close to wrapping up, obviously, but like you said you were talking at a few workshops earlier this year.
Oh, yes.
You got other ones planned this year?
We've got one more coming up this year in Chamonix in November. And what's it called?
The Rise Up Masterclass. So it's a 5-day residential.
Oh, wow.
And it seems to be, I guess predominantly French and German attendees. And we're kind of doing elopement shoots in the Alps. That's our contribution.
Sounds great.
So again,
we're looking forward
to that. Trying to build that community of elopement photographers in France.
World domination of elopements.
And you offer some mentorship online, is that right?
Yeah, kind of moving forward to next year, we're going to be offering one-on-one mentorship sessions for photographers.
So we've been doing a few, but we're just trying to build up how we structure those.
I think it's sort of maybe over the last year or so we sort of finally felt like we'd got something to share, whereas I think up until now, I mean, obviously you're always learning and you always continue to learn, and you're always striving to kind of get better, but I feel like we found our groove over the last kind of year or so, and so we feel like, hey, we might have got something to share with some other people that they would find useful. I think
we like to generate our own knowledge base and our own lived practice rather than just always consuming what other people have given an education and then recapitulating it and presenting it as ours. I think we've spent enough time doing this now that we have our own advice, basically.
Yes, indeed. I think that's listening to all the, I mean, literally it's why we called the podcast Perspective, is because we do love listening to how people have moved through their business world and how they apply themselves in this industry of, like, I know it's weddings, but there's so many ways of documenting and running your business and how you talk to clients and all that kind of stuff. I find it's very interesting to see how different people apply themselves.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've talked about some TV shows that you've watched and all that kind of good stuff, but do you have any like book recommendations or other shows that you'd recommend or anything that's inspired you?
I'm currently trying to read a book called Zen Camera.
Okay.
I don't know where I got the recommendation now. It's basically, it is aimed at kind of newbie photographers, but it also has this mindset of trying to get people re-engaged with the original mindset when they got into photography. Like what's their unconscious mind trying to communicate about photography and learning that passion again that you have as a hobbyist that sometimes can get a little bit chewed away at the edges when you're doing something professionally for a long time. So it's trying to kind of like reignite that hobbyist mentality and creativity. I can't remember the author. He's been teaching photography for 40 years.
Is it David Ulrich?
Yeah.
Cool. Yes,
I've been playing with that one recently. And then
we both love
Gregory Crewdson.
Oh, can you think?
Gregory Crewdson. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you've come across Gregory Crewdson. He's probably one of my earliest influences in photography. And you'd like him from the perspective of the fact that he builds these enormous film sets, like with lighting, sets, everything, but just to take one picture.
And it's very much, every picture tells a story. I think he's the definition of cinematic storytelling, because every image you feel like you've just paused in the middle of a feature film at a really poignant moment. And, you can imagine the story, the narrative
and
that
quite
led
Stephen
there.
King-esque type stories that you imagine that have been freeze-framed.
Yeah, there's a darkness.
It is a real darkness.
Yeah.
But just for like, I mean, I've drawn elements from it into some of our morning photography, but it's, I mean, some of it's a little bit somber and macabre, but it's fantastic. And I just love the production value that he produces for it.
I think there's a sort of claustrophobia to it a lot. It's almost like that small town America it's kind of vibes you feel there quite a lot.
Big fan of his work.
A lot of his work kind of seems to be featured around like suburbia as well, like which I find is adding to the, I don't want to say horror elements, but like there is the darkness that we talked about. It kind of adds to that. The macabre. It's like what happens where people aren't looking, but
it's behind the closed doors of the housewives. Or whatever.
Exactly that.
And
in terms of
good recommendations,
books, Mountains of the Mind and the
Living Mountain, Nan Shepherd.
Yeah, but no, Mountains of the Mind guy. I always forget his name.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, the nature writing guy.
Robert McFarlane.
Yeah.
Well, Robert McFarlane. I mean, I love all of his stuff. So he, no one articulates and describes the landscape as well as he does.
Just nature, kind of nature writing at its most
but he did the foreword
evocative.
for Nan Shepherd's The Living Mountain, and I've always been very big on that one because she talks about how you perceive the landscape differently, not only at different times of year, but at different ages. That you will see things differently. A young person is firing up to the top of a hill and is very much climbing over the landscape. But as you get older, you walk into the landscape and you might be walking a bit slower and you see things at a different resolution. And so it's just about that perspective on the world and how it's always refreshed and different. Across your life. Yeah.
Interesting.
But that's a classic, based around the Cairngorms.
Yeah. Mines of the Mountain is on Amazon. Paperback, like $3.50. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. Even the Kindle version's more expensive. What is going on here? Gregory
Other booksellers are available.
Yes. Please.
Also, stop it. Yes.
Amazon's like a good like rough price guide, or a guide to like, is it easy to get hold of? But yes, please do support your local bookshops. It's just because it's a quick and easy. Amazon has everything. It's a business slut, I suppose. That's how I would describe it. That's not a very good word. I might take that out. I might have to beep that. Oops. And Zen camera you can get on hardcover.
Yeah, Zen camera.
1733.
He managed 2 whole hours, and then it's all fell apart.
Look, when we were talking about I heard dick pics the whole time. You should rewatch when you're talking about that. I was almost like giggling to myself. So I did well.
Oh, did right. Oh my God.
Dick pics not in the gallery. Anyway, Katy and Jim, where can people find you online?
So we are at the Caryls on Instagram with a little underscore between the and the Caryls.
The underscore Caryls, which is Caryls. No one can ever spell it.
Yeah, and thecaryls.co.uk for our website.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. People can find us at perspectivebycinemate.com. Keep checking my blog. I've started blogging, so I'm trying to release a new blog
very long form
every week. Very long form. Oh, sorry, are my words boring for you?
No, just letting people know that there's some good long reads in there that they can go and enjoy.
If you want to be bored out your tits, you can go to our blog, and I've written some stuff long form. There you go.
That wasn't in a negative.
Okay. All right. Fine. You're right. Okay. Our Instagram is at Perspective by Cinemate. Thank you to PickTime for sponsoring this episode. And if you have liked this conversation, you can hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we are on YouTube if you want to see our faces. If you want to see this beautiful demure face, it's worth it just for Greg alone. I mean, my goodness. Hit subscribe on YouTube at Perspective by Cinemate. Or, I've mentioned the podcast already. However,
in the meantime,
enjoy your life. Oh.
Yeah.
God, what a cliff edge the ending of that episode was. My God.